So, hi, I'm Dr. Jeff Brown on the Merge Medical podcast. I'm joined by my co host, Dr. Jeff Cole, and Luis Blanco, and John Wilcox, the executive team from Diatech. They are laser focused on diabetic care, improving the safety and efficacy of the infusion pumps used to deliver insulin. They've got a software as a service platform that monitors the delivery of insulin to alert both the patient, perhaps the parent and the caregiver, to a problem with the delivery of the medication. They check mark all the boxes for the Merge Medical podcast in the sense that John Wilcox, the CEO, is a sufferer of type 1 diabetes himself. This product very potentially would help millions and millions of patients, help millions and millions of doctors take care of patients, and perhaps enrich our lives as well from a financial standpoint. So with that, John, tell me about Diatech.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Brown. Great to see you too here, Dr. Cole. Luis and I, as mentioned, are the co-founders of Diatech Diabetes, and we're a medication delivery and monitoring company that is developing out a platform for people with diabetes to use with their insulin pumps called SmartFusion. The reason why we're doing this primarily is because there's a huge need for this in this space. Insulin pump therapy is widely used within the diabetes community. However, recently reported in a study that we performed, published in Diabetes Technology and Therapeutics, over 90% of people that use insulin pumps for diabetes therapy experience something called an insulin pump infusion failure. And this is an occurrence where the inserted insulin pump can become blocked, can leak, and can also be dislodged from the body, resulting in the insulin not being absorbed properly by the person with diabetes, and can ultimately lead to hyperglycemia, diabetes ketoacidosis, and it can even be fatal. And so we are very, very focused on developing out a software product called SmartFusion that looks at data directly from the pump and is able to integrate with the pump as either an algorithm or app that can pair with the pump's specific sensors to notify the user when the infusion is not successful and provide data and recommendations to avoid infusion failure in the future when utilizing these products. And we've developed out this platform, as you mentioned, because we have personal stake in this type of device. I wear an insulin pump, have for 15 years, and Luis's family members also wear insulin pumps. So we're really focused on making this a thing.
That's really interesting. So the problem with just the pump not doing what you assume it's doing is that a newer acknowledgement as far as the scientists figuring out that the pump isn't always delivering what we think it's delivering?
Yeah, so kind of right about when we were getting started back in 2018 as a idea. Was also the emergence of what is the artificial pancreas. This is a system that combines continuous glucose monitors and insulin pump therapy for automated insulin dosing based off of glucose levels that the person with diabetes has. And so with this advent of more automated insulin dosing, more hands-off infusion, really continued to emphasize the need for a type of platform like this to ensure that insulin infusion failures are being monitored for and cared for. You can also see how this affected the industry with the development of certain hardware products that look to reduce the occurrence of infusion failure. There were several disposable infusion sets, which are the things that fail with the insulin pump, that were redeveloped to reduce infusion failure occurrence. However, they still have incidents of infusion failure. There are failure rates attributed to the clinical studies that they've published. And clinicians also say that a person with diabetes that's wearing a device 24/7 are essentially always going to experience an infusion failure at some point, potentially. So this new development of technology over the last several years has really put this again as one of the last things that need to be solved to ensure that insulin pump therapy can be completely automated and used best by people with diabetes.
And tell us more about your product.
Yeah, so as I mentioned with SmartFusion, it is a software system which currently exists as both an algorithm and an app with an algorithm on it. And so the reason why we kind of have those two versions is because the way that we sell our product is to manufacturers directly of insulin pumps for them to integrate that software into their system. So if they are interested, they could potentially just purchase and license the use of our algorithm to be integrated into their pump system, or connect to our app with our algorithm on it to do that data transfer that allows us to monitor for infusion failure. And so once a manufacturer purchases that type of license and enables that integration of our software with their system, it could be readily available for a person with diabetes to use. And so we have developed out this platform to try and be agnostic to both patch and tubed insulin pumps. And we are currently discussing with 2 manufacturers of a tubed insulin pump and a patch insulin pump for the development of SmartFusion for their systems.
That's great. And since you are software and software can be portable, how do you protect yourself, your IP?
That's a great question. So we do hold IP coverage within the United States. We filed for international coverage with a recent PCT application to Europe. And in addition to that, we do maintain trade secrets, but also have included claims and specific clauses within every research and development contract that we sign with potential licensees during our R&D phase with them. So we take a lot of necessary steps to ensure that our IP is held by us because, of course, our customer could also potentially be our competitor. But we always approach them and say, look, we're experts within this technology development. We understand that you have a problem. Let's work together to get this solved. And that's really the approach that we try to take.
And where are you guys in the regulatory pathway?
Yeah, so currently we have not met with the FDA yet, but we do have we are scheduling our first Q sub meeting with the FDA for the first quarter of next year, based off of our timeline. However, a regulatory process that we envision for our system would involve us filing a joint regulatory submission with the manufacturers who would purchase our system and follow their regulatory requirements for the pumps that they sell to patients. So we would ultimately act as potentially a third-party software manufacturer that would enable only a transfer of data and software to the manufacturer, who would then go on to receive regulatory clearance themselves for use. We understand that regulatory approval is based off of indications of use and claims. So for our first product, we're looking to develop out a software platform that can provide alarms and alerts to infusion failures that occur within the wear period of the approved insulin pump wear time, as well as being able to provide simply data review of historical failure occurrences and where those happened on the body. And so we envision that to be a very low-level regulatory burden. However, as we move forward with our development of this platform, when we look into providing recommendations potentially for insulin dosing or how much insulin was actually delivered for a failure, and how that could affect the patient's glucose levels, we understand that would potentially require further regulatory approval. But for our first market entry platform, we expect a very low.
It seemed like it'd be a very short pathway given what you're trying to accomplish.
And I can't imagine you have to redo it each time. So assuming there are, for around number 12 manufacturers that are in your sites, you're talking to 2, it sounds like, and let's just say you go through the dual regulatory process with one. Would you have to do that each and every time? Let's say if you worked with all 12 companies, or would there be a short path perhaps?
So we can honestly say that we do not know the answer to that question yet until we officially talk to the FDA. But I would envision that based off of us filing and receiving regulatory approval with a specific pump that is of a tubed pump versus a patch pump, because those are the 2 different types of infusion pumps. If we are to receive approval for one of those and then we go to the FDA, we could use the second time for one of those other specific devices. We could potentially follow on and utilize that previous submission as evidence, as clinical evidence for an approval for a similar type of insulin pump.
Passes the common sense test anyway.
Potentially.
Yeah. And John, you already said that your business model would be licensing this to the manufacturers of the pumps. And it's very clear that the target market is somebody with diabetes that's requiring insulin. I want to talk briefly about the fundraising that you're in, but I would like to tell the listener that's listening to this short version of this podcast, you're probably doing yourself a crime by not listening to the full version of this, because this has got implications far beyond diabetic management, including any type of infusion. Do you want to talk just a little bit about that and what other potential markets?
Yeah, absolutely. So regarding the potential, we've developed out this platform, again, to be truly agnostic to not just insulin pumps, but to ambulatory infusion delivery devices. And so we, including in our IP, have included claims to cover the application of SmartFusion to other disease state technologies such as Parkinson's, oncology, immunotherapy, ambulatory infusion pumps that we see as being a much larger market outside of just the insulin pump space. So as we grow and we hit diabetes as as our first market, we would potentially look to expand into those markets and apply our system to those pumps as well. To just be able to get us though through our first diabetes pump integration and market entrance, we are raising about $3 million in dilutive capital to pair with a recent $1 million award from the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation we just received a couple months ago. So we're so excited to have that momentum, and we're looking to raise capital now to supplement that and get us to a point where we can enter the market with one of the manufacturers that we are currently partnered with for regulatory submission.
This is the part of the podcast where I ask you guys if there's anything that we haven't asked you that you'd like our listeners to hear. Keep in mind, you'll be heard by people that might use your device, people that might use their device for their patients, or people that might invest in the company.
Luis, I've been talking a lot. Do you want to come on in and maybe say a wrap up, and then I'll say one last thing?
Yeah, I think for, the opportunity with Diatech is an interesting one. We're a kind of a combination of a lot of different businesses, right? We have a really heavy research and development focus, which is evident from our grant from the, NIH. We have the award from the JRF. We have investment. We're working on a couple of different things. We have products that we worked in the past, like a hardware solution that we use as a research platform for testing our for collecting data for our algorithms. And this is something that we can offer as a service to universities or customers or whoever. We're working on obviously our main product is SmartFusion. It's an AI-based infusion failure detection algorithm. It's very, very effective. We actually haven't talked anything about that, but the algorithm works within seconds after an infusion, where the leading algorithm right now in publications takes about 200 to 300 minutes post-infusion to identify a failure, right? So it's magnitudes faster. And then we're also building we have a really strong focus on digital health, right? With our SmartFusion platform, where physicians can come in and look at this new data stream, but also they can integrate with other devices, right? You want to add Garmin, you want to add Dexcom, you want to add, your pet's smart collar for whatever reason as a medical device. We could do that, right? And it's really designed from this, from our needs that has come out, which is, we're testing different devices, we have ambitions, but not every platform can accommodate that in a regulatory compliant, right, high trust compliant manner. So we're building it for ourselves and hopefully for other people, right? So we have a passion for diabetes. We have a passion for technology. We really want to do this for the patients, right? We believe this is something that will change the course of how we think about medication delivery, and not only in insulin therapy, but also potentially other drugs. So John and I are young, but it doesn't, we're trying our best. Wherever we don't know something, we reach out for help. I think that's the strongest thing an entrepreneur can do. And what we hope this podcast gets across is that we're very ambitious, we're very motivated, very driven. And, we'd love for folks to come in and believe in the product like we do and, fund the company, but also if you think you can help in any way, give advice, mentor us, please reach out. We'd love to connect because we think this is a great opportunity.
I love that.
That's fabulous. Yeah, thank you.
At Merge Medical, our purpose is to interview what we feel is disruptive healthcare startups that will change in a positive manner the care of patients. We try to focus on founder-led programs that are personally involved, programs that will help patients, that will help physicians, from a patient care standpoint and also enrich their lives financially. You guys check mark all the boxes, and I can't thank you enough for being here. Louis Blanco and John Wilcox at Diatech. That's a wrap.